My name is Alyssa Carter, and I'm 30 years old. To my family, I am a harmless footnote, the daughter who works as a clerk in the Air Force. They picture me in a windowless office, pushing paper, answering phones, collecting a steady paycheck while life passes by. It's a tidy story. It keeps me small enough to fit inside their expectations. The truth would not fit. I am a Black Hawk helicopter pilot. I strap into a machine built for storms and fire, lift into blacked-out skies, and thread valleys where one wrong turn can become a headline. I know the whine of rotors at full torque, the way a cabin smells like hydraulic fluid and dust, the stillness in a crew's eyes when we lift off with wounded souls who might not see sunrise. I know how fear sounds on the radio, and how to talk over it, calm and steady, until the voice on the other end remembers how to breathe. I don't tell my family any of this. Part of it is protocol. You don't take home what belongs to the mission. But most of it is muscle memory from childhood, years of learning that, in my parents' house, some truths are too inconvenient to be believed. My father, Robert, prizes appearances. My mother, Linda, prizes harmony. My younger sister, Chloe, is their harmony wrapped in appearances, bright, adored, uncomplicated. I was the child who wanted altitude and answers. They called that difficult. I learned to close doors softly and make my life elsewhere. So I let them keep their clerk. I let them wave away the calluses on my hands as gym stuff and the faint oil-sweet smell on my jacket as hanger something. My uniform hangs in a garment bag 2 doors down from their living room, hidden under a bland gray blazer I wear when they insist on photos. When they ask about work, I give them the parts anyone could live with: early mornings, long shifts, office duties. I never say the things I say in the cockpit: clear left, taking fire, we're coming in hot. You might think living a double life would hollow me out. It hasn't. It has sharpened me. There is a power in choosing what to reveal and when to reveal it. There is a steadiness in knowing who you are even when the people who raised you do not. Still, secrecy has a weight. I feel it at family dinners, when Chloe tells stories that land like confetti and eyes turn to her, warm and easy. I feel it when my parents look at me with polite relief, as if I've chosen a safe, unremarkable path. I've learned to carry that weight the way I carry the bird in crosswinds, hands firm, breath measured, eyes forward. Chloe's birthday is coming up. There will be cake and candles and a room full of laughter. I'll stand where I always stand, close enough to be part of the picture, far enough not to disturb it. They will see their clerk. And I will let them. For now. Because the sky is changing. And when the storm breaks, it won't ask for anyone's permission. I grew up knowing exactly where I stood in the Carter household. Our family dinners were a theater, and my role was always background, quiet, reliable, unremarkable. My father, Robert, liked to talk about success in terms of presentation. He admired polished appearances, clean reputations, achievements that could be measured in applause. My mother, Linda, nodded along, her smiles always tilted toward my younger sister, Chloe. Chloe was the darling of the family. She didn't have to try. Her laughter was the kind that made neighbors adore her, her looks the kind that made relatives boast. She was the one invited to speak at church events, the one my parents compared to a star. Me. I was a shadow to that star, someone who worked hard but never quite earned their approval. I remember being 17, standing in the kitchen with grease under my fingernails after tinkering with an old motorcycle engine. My father walked in, shook his head and muttered, "Girls shouldn't smell like machine shops." Later that evening, Chloe came home from cheer practice, hair bouncing, uniform bright, and he grinned at her like she'd just won an Olympic medal. That was the rhythm of our lives. Chloe received praise like oxygen, and I learned to live without it. It wasn't that I didn't try. I excelled in math, graduated near the top of my class, and earned a place in ROTC. But when I told my parents I wanted to fly, their faces tightened. My mother sighed, my father scoffed, and Chloe smirked. Flying was unrealistic. Serving was dangerous. The safe story, that I became a clerk, was the one they clung to, and I let them, because the truth seemed wasted on ears that never listened. Even now, when I visit home, I can feel the imbalance in the air. Chloe talks about her new outfits, her growing circle of friends, her perfect plans. My parents beam. They rarely ask about my job, and when they do, it's with the kind of half-interest you reserve for weather small talk. I've spent my whole life being underestimated, dismissed, tucked into the margins of my own family's book. But here's the irony. While they were busy ignoring me, I was learning something they'll never understand. That strength is often invisible until the moment it's called to the surface. And that moment was coming. I could feel it like turbulence before the storm. Chloe's birthday fell on a Saturday that year. My parents went all out. Streamers curled across the ceiling, balloons bobbed along the railings, the kind of party that looked like it belonged in glossy neighborhood magazines. Guests filled the house, family friends, neighbors, distant cousins. Everyone gathered around Chloe like she was royalty, and she basked in the glow like it was her birthright. I stood near the back, holding a paper plate I hadn't touched, watching her make a wish before blowing out the candles. Her laughter bubbled as people clapped, and then she leaned forward, voice ringing out in that smug, playful tone she used when she wanted an audience. "You all know my sister Alyssa, right?" she said, pointing her fork toward me. Heads turned. I froze, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips out of habit. I should have known better. "She works in the Air Force, but not the cool kind of job you're imagining," Chloe went on. "No, she's just a clerk. You know, typing reports, stamping papers, filing stuff. Imagine wasting your 20s on that." The room erupted in laughter. Some chuckled politely, others outright cackled, and I felt my face heat though I didn't move. Robert, my father, actually nodded, smirking as if Chloe had just made the wittiest toast of the evening. My mother, Linda, didn't stop her. She added softly, "Well, at least it's stable. Not everyone is meant for the spotlight." My chest tightened. Stable. That's all I was to them. Not daring, not capable, not strong, just stable. A paper pusher in their eyes. I stood there, staring at the flicker of candles melting down the sides of Chloe's cake. Inside, anger pressed against my ribs like it wanted to burst out, but I swallowed it down. Years in the cockpit had taught me discipline. You don't let emotions shake your grip on the controls, not even when fire lights up the night sky. So I smiled, a small controlled curve of my lips, and said nothing. Because one day, the truth would speak louder than Chloe's jokes and my parents' dismissive nods. One day, the world would know who I was. And when that day came, none of them would laugh. 2 nights after Chloe's birthday, I was back on base, walking across the tarmac under the hum of sodium lights. The air smelled faintly of jet fuel and dust, a scent that had long since woven itself into my skin. I had just finished a maintenance review when my radio buzzed, sharp and urgent. "Lieutenant Carter, report to operations. Priority briefing." I didn't hesitate. My boots struck fast against the concrete as I made my way inside. The briefing room was stark, maps pinned to walls, screens glowing with satellite feeds, officers speaking in clipped tones. The moment I entered, every eye shifted toward me. The mission was clear and brutal. A U.S. Special Forces unit had been ambushed in a remote Afghan valley. They were pinned down, outnumbered, and running out of ammunition. Evacuation was the only chance of survival. The terrain was narrow, hostile, unforgiving. "Enemy anti-air presence is confirmed," the commanding officer said. His gaze locked on me. "We need a Black Hawk pilot who can get in, hold under fire, and get our people out. Carter, you're it." The weight of those words pressed on me like the rotor wash of my helicopter. I thought of Chloe's laughter echoing in that birthday room, of my parents nodding in agreement while I was mocked. To them, I was a clerk. To my country, in this moment, I was the line between life and death. I squared my shoulders and gave a single nod. "Copy that, sir. I'll bring them home." As I turned to leave, a quiet steadiness settled over me, the same calm that always rose before a mission. This was my world, my truth, my purpose. The Carter family would never know this side of me, at least not yet. But America was about to. The blades of my Black Hawk roared to life, cutting through the Afghan night like a drumbeat of war. The valley ahead was marked in red on my map, a nest of danger where Captain Jason Reed and his men were pinned down. Every second ticked against them. "Carter, you're clear for takeoff," came the command in my headset. I lifted the bird off the ground, the weight of armor and lives pressing through the controls. My co-pilot called out bearings, but the air was already thick with radio chatter, panicked voices, bursts of gunfire in the background. "We're running low on ammo. Need that bird now." The valley unfolded beneath us, jagged cliffs casting shadows under the moon. Then came the streaks of enemy fire, bright, merciless tracers clawing at the sky. I dropped low, maneuvering hard, the Black Hawk shuddering under the strain. My jaw clenched. Hold steady. Breathe. We broke into the hot zone. Down below, muzzle flashes lit up the ridgeline. I could see Reed's team dug in, firing back, silhouettes against chaos. I dropped the Hawk into a controlled descent, rounds pinging against the fuselage like hail. My voice was steady. We're here. Get your men on board. Now. The ramp lowered, and soldiers sprinted through the storm, some dragging the wounded. One by one, they climbed in, while I held the bird steady against the fury of incoming fire. My co-pilot shouted over the noise. We're heavy. They're all in. Then we're leaving, I answered, pulling back on the stick. The rotors screamed as we clawed upward, RPGs trailing smoke past the tail. My chest pounded, but my hands never faltered. We cleared the valley, banking hard until the gunfire faded behind us. Silence filled the cabin, broken only by the groans of the wounded and the rasp of exhausted men. Captain Reed stumbled forward, gripping the frame for balance, his face streaked with dirt and blood. He looked at me through the open cockpit door and said, hoarse but clear, "You just saved my men. We owe you everything." I didn't answer. I just flew, because that was the job. By the time we landed back at base, the sun was breaking across the horizon, staining the desert sky in shades of fire and gold. The Special Forces team was rushed to medical, and I finally exhaled the breath I'd been holding for hours. My hands were still vibrating from the controls, my uniform streaked with sweat and dust, but we were alive, and so were they. I thought that would be the end of it. Another mission, another line in a classified report, another memory I'd lock away. But within hours, the story broke. A major news outlet got hold of it first. Black Hawk pilot rescues pinned U.S. forces in Afghanistan. Then others followed. CNN, Fox, the New York Times, every channel, every headline carried my name. Alyssa Carter. My photo appeared beside words like hero, courage, American strength. At the Pentagon press briefing, a colonel stood at the podium and declared, "Lieutenant Carter's actions saved the lives of an entire Special Forces team. She represents the very best of this country." Cameras flashed, reporters scribbled, anchors repeated my name with reverence. I sat in the barracks lounge that evening, watching it all play out on TV. My face filled the screen, the same face Chloe had mocked just days before. I could almost hear her laughter echoing in my head. But now, the world was laughing for me, not at me. Back home, I knew my family would be watching. I pictured Robert setting down his paper, Linda's hand frozen over her tea, Chloe staring at the screen as the truth unraveled in front of her. The clerk they had ridiculed was not just part of the Air Force, she was its front line. For the first time in my life, I didn't care what they thought. The world knew who I was. The phone calls started before I even had the chance to sleep. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, it was all from home. 4 years, my phone had been quiet when it came to family. Now it buzzed like an alarm that wouldn't quit. When I finally returned home on leave a week later, I walked through the front door to faces I barely recognized. My parents, Robert and Linda, looked stunned, their eyes wide like they were seeing me for the first time. Chloe hovered behind them, her smile nervous and forced. "Why didn't you tell us?" my mother whispered. "Why keep this a secret from your own family?" I set my bag down and met her gaze evenly. "Because you never wanted the truth. You only ever wanted the version of me that made you comfortable." Chloe stepped forward quickly, phone in her hand. "I posted about you," she said breathlessly. "Everyone's saying how proud I must be to have a sister like you. You're trending. People are calling me the hero's sister. Isn't that amazing?" Her words burned. 4 years, she had mocked me, dismissed me, erased me. And now she wanted to share my spotlight. I shook my head slowly. "When I needed you, all of you, you laughed at me. You treated me like I was nothing. Now that the world knows my name, suddenly you care. Suddenly you want to claim me." Robert finally spoke, his voice stiff but breaking. "Alyssa, we were wrong. We underestimated you. We're sorry." For a moment, silence filled the room. Their apologies dangled in the air like smoke, insubstantial and too late. I straightened my shoulders, the same way I do in the cockpit before takeoff. You can keep your apologies, I said quietly but firmly. Because when you chose to laugh at me, you made your decision. And now I've made mine. Their faces crumpled, but I felt nothing, not anger, not relief, just clarity. I left their apologies hanging in the air, picked up my bag, and headed for the door. My boots echoed across the hardwood floor, each step heavier than the last but also strangely freeing. Behind me, I could hear my mother's voice crack, my father's sigh, Chloe's faint sob. For years, I had stood in that house feeling small. Tonight, I left it standing tall. On the porch, the cool night air wrapped around me. I paused, staring up at the stars, the same stars I often traced through the cockpit window at 30,000 feet. Out there, above the noise of the world, I had always found my truth. I turned back one last time, not to soften my words but to leave them with what they had earned. When I needed you, you mocked me. When I wanted you to believe in me, you laughed. Now, I no longer need your approval, your pride, or your excuses. I built myself without you. The world sees me now, and I see myself more clearly than ever. Their faces blurred behind the glass as I walked down the steps. My car waited at the curb, but my mind was already in the sky. That's where I belonged, where strength had a voice, and where I didn't have to shrink for anyone. Some families are born. Some are chosen. And some, like mine, are left behind when you finally find the courage to rise. I didn't look back again. They once mocked me as a clerk, but I proved them wrong in the sky with every life I saved. My revenge wasn't shouting or fighting. It was walking away with the world finally knowing my worth. This is Revenge Repeat, where the scars of betrayal become stories of power. If you were me, would you forgive them, or leave them behind forever?